Welcome to the Pmbc meeting for January 8th, 2025. I'm going to share my screen if I can remember how to do that for the agenda. So can everyone see that?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so call to order. There is no warrant. That's going to be for the next meeting. Is that correct, Brian?
That's correct.
Approve the meeting minutes of 12/11. We haven't quite gotten through the edits on that, so we're going to push that off to the next meeting. Shaker Lane School Building Feasibility Study. Stacy, do you want to give an update on that?
Yep, absolutely. So we had submitted the PSR to the MSBA early December. I believe they have 6 weeks to review that. And that was the preferred schematic report that we had sent in about the version of the school that we wanted. It's a new building. So that had, I think it was like 600 pages worth of all the details about the school. So MSBA is reviewing that right now. We have a meeting with them on January 29th to go over anything that they want us to change on it, have kind of a big overview as to what they thought about the PSR and what things we need to do to update that. So that's on January 29th. And our next SLBC meeting is actually January 15th because we're reviewing, I guess the orientation of the building can change a little bit now because they've done some soil testing and some wetlands testing. So now the orientation as to where we decided to put the building, it can change a little bit. So we have a meeting about that as well.
Great. And any questions? Okay, Senior Center update, Brian.
Yep. As you alluded to, Steve, we do not have the warrant or the invoice packet ready. We weren't able to get that turned around on the 3rd. So we have all the information and we're in good standing to get that over to you well ahead of the next PMBC meeting. We do have the monthly reports ready. They just need some financial information put into it. For the Senior Center, things are moving right along. Finishes are starting to go in on the interior with painting, flooring, ceilings, as well as other mechanical and electrical systems and low voltage systems. Working with Nancy Glencross, we are bringing our fiber into the building on tomorrow with the town's vendor Comtrack. That will be terminated in the MDF room, and then we'll be starting building out the rack in order to get our network up and running in the building. That network is going to play a role in our commissioning of our systems as well as the building management system for the building proper. Like Kirby said, we had a commissioning meeting this afternoon at 2 o'clock that focused mainly on a lot of points that will be seen on the front end, as well as startups of equipment that we have on site now. We do have another meeting with the engineer of record to go over and with facilities and Eric to go over exactly what will be seen by facilities on the computer screen on the front end graphics for the building maintenance system. We're still tracking for middle of March for our substantial completion on this. That does not include any improvements to the construction house that we're using now, which will have some plumbing work as well as connection to the force main that's in Shattuck Street, as well as a driveway that's going to be installed for that. Also with the construction house, we have the civil engineer that is scheduled to go in front of the planning board in March for the adjustment of the property lines, so that once we turn this building back over to the town, it'll be in the town's property, and the property itself will be adequate and locked in with the assessor's office as well. There are no change orders per se to bring up to the committee, but I did have a couple updates that I wanted to bring up. We have vetted one potential change order that we're going to bring to you probably when we have a group of them together, but we are satisfied and recommending with the credit for a portion of the sprinkler system. We asked some questions about a dry system that was designed for the canopy on the exterior. We were able to use some different non-combustible materials, and we're able to delete the dry system entirely. So that change order is going to come at a credit of around $38,000 to the town. And will certainly offset any other ads that we have. So we'll bring that as one package, hopefully at the next PMBC meeting, and we'll process that paperwork.
That's good news.
Yeah, the other change that we have, we received a change order from the electrician, and it had to do with some of the low voltage that we had that coordinates between our security system that lives in the MDF room and the associated wiring that comes out of said MDF room to each individual door that has our access control on it. They submitted a change order. We went through the specifications. Vertex felt as if that was actually owned per contract. We had several meetings with a consultant who actually agreed with our stance on this, and the electrical contractor at that point did not agree. The avenue or the route that we were opting to take is to issue a construction change directive, which is to force the contractor to do that so they don't have to lose any schedule. They do not have to impact any of the other trades. Ultimately, it's forcing them to do the work under protest, and we will address this, and it makes sure that the work gets completed while the ceilings are still open, while the doors are still accessible. But that is something that with the pushback we got from the electrical contractor, we opted to go with the directive route. That change order would not be coming to the town. Commodore asked if they could do it as we call it a CM contingency change order, and they'd be taking it out of their own contingency. But as you know, with CM at risk or Chapter 149A, any leftover or surplus funds at the end of the day comes back to the town. So, it ultimately is the town's money, regardless on what bucket we take it from. So we felt as though it wasn't a viable change order. And at this point, we're directing them to do the work. And ultimately, we'll revisit this with the consultants, and ultimately we'll bring that to the committee if there is any type of monetary changes to Commodore and their GMP.
What kind of money you talking, Brian?
It was about 18 grand. And so that would be, ultimately it's bringing about 6 to 8 18-2 wires from the MDF room to each individual door. And those will feed the card readers, the door contacts, any electric strikes that feed into that security system. It's a big level of semantics on, they felt that they owned all of the wiring to cameras, but not to access control. We found verbiage that really did not support that argument, so we were pushing back with the directive.
So I assume that is that coming directly from the electrical contractor or one of their subs?
It's the electrical contractor, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's quite minor, and this happens. This is pretty common, and my assumption is that we will get through this and we will make this either go away, or we will have some sort of a negotiation with other things that are being brought to the table so that we can feel comfortable before we recommend it to the committee.
Brian, there was another thing mentioned while we're talking about the electrician. They're talking about extra pay for putting the panels up on the roof.
Yeah, they've at this stage right now, this is an internal argument between the electrician and the roofer and Commodore. They felt as if that they were delayed because of the roof going on and the schedule. There is some validity to the length of time that some of the submittals had gone back and forth, because some of the spec solar panels were discontinued. And ultimately, I've taken the stance of taking a step back and let the contractors kind of deal with this themselves. They're having some internal meetings this week. I plan on meeting with the brass at Commodore early next week to kind of go through the results of their meetings and see if there's anything that they're ultimately going to push back on. But I don't foresee this being a real big issue, and I'm taking the stance that there really is no issue for the owner on this. Ultimately, they wanted to put the panels on earlier. But the process of approving these panels, we've gone through several different systems in order to get a no-cost change for the new materials that are going up on the roof.
So is this a time impact or is it a cost, just a, what kind of an impact is it?
What they're claiming is that they, due to the conditions and the weather conditions and the winter conditions that they're in, that their productivity has been slowed down significantly. So the end date, I do not foresee being an issue. They've actually accelerated their substantial completion date, and they're still tracking to hit said date. I really think it's a sub issue right now that the owner really doesn't need to be involved with at this point.
What's the name of the electrical contractor?
Wayne Griffin.
Oh, Griffin. Oh yeah.
So that's also the first change that I was discussing to the
Fully understand.
The CCD. Yeah. So
tell Wayne to F himself.
Yeah.
To be frank, yeah, that's how we deal with him.
Yeah. So, but if that's our issue right now, I think we're in a great spot right now. We had the audiovisual consultant on site today. I believe he's scheduled to be on site tomorrow as well to go over some of the provisions that we have. If you remember, per our last Pmbc meeting, we did a budget transfer in order to accommodate the AV package. We have released the projector screen and a projector scissor lift because that has coordination with Commodore for installation. We're working out some technical kinks and some administrative comments that I had on their proposal. And once we get that, I've been promised to receive that this week. My plan is to review that with LCTV and with the town to make sure they're comfortable with it. But now that we have the budgetary number for it, we would extend their purchase order in order to install things like the speakers, the amplifiers, the rack, as well as the projector itself that's going in the multi-purpose room.
Brian, there was another thing that was mentioned today, the disconnect for the elevator. They have to change a door and move the disconnect or do something with the disconnect.
Yes, I got that in my email as well. We'll determine where that needs to go, and ultimately whether it was a coordination issue that should have been flagged during design, or whether it was a coordination issue during Commodore's coordination meetings that they run with their subs prior to construction. So
who picks up the nickel for that?
Not sure yet whether those are the two scenarios that I have, whether it's a contractor coordination or a design omission that will determine who is at fault there.
Well, even if it's an omission, I would suspect that we use contractor contingency for that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in addition to the contingency that we have in Commodore's contingency, we have a significant amount of money in allowances and withholds that we did before we generated our guaranteed maximum price. And these are for things you can't really put a number to, like weather conditions or temporary conditions that are needed. We review everything before those come out of those buckets. And so we still have a very healthy allowances and holds that ultimately can cover some of these costs. One of the allowances that we have was a number that we held in the event that we had electrical procurement problems, because at the time of bid, we thought that there may be some lingering COVID issues with trying to procure electrical panels and electrical equipment. We got through that without having to spend any of that money. So that's something that is a resource that we'd be able to dip into if we had to.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Brian, one of the things that I'm getting a little itchy about, given the turnaround time for our friends at T-Code Media, is the statement that has been made about the tariffs and closing off on the quote. And
yep.
I'm trying to figure out, you've got more experience in that if they haven't even given us a quote to work with, an updated one, that they've got to take some acceptance or responsibility for any tariffs that also come along with that delay.
I think it's a great point, and it's something we're dealing with in all of our projects, especially ones that are going out to bid right now, is the unknown about how this is going to shake out. We've consulted with some of our estimators, third-party estimators that we've had too, about what the impact that they feel is going to be about certain tariffs. And they feel as though it's going to take some time in order to shake out to see the actual impact of these. My intention would be is if we receive a quote, like I was told we would within this week,
Yep.
that we'd be able to extend their PO because we do have the budgetary line item now for that. So
Okay.
that does leave, Kirby, the what we're calling the Part B that we haven't addressed yet. But I think that once we get over the hump of Part A,
Yes.
we make that a high priority to clear this up and figure out how that's going to be.
Yeah, I still have some concern about that whole Omni thing.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to talk about it offline, but as I said before, when you get the submission or the new quote, I'm happy to stay on it until we get it done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Besides that, I think we've issued a purchase order now for our furniture. We've had the furniture vendor, WB Mason, on site to do some measurement, make sure that the conditions are going to be right, as well as scheduling our delivery. We want to make sure that delivery is coordinated so that we're not interfering with any contractors or any punch lists. I have bad experience with trying to move in furniture while people are trying to touch things up, and there's a lot of finger pointing about who scratched what or where furniture goes or who put paint on what. And you try to thread the needle of getting the furniture installed so that we can turn the building over as soon as possible while getting it done 100%. So we're scheduling that for that middle of March to end of March.
Okay, any other questions on the senior center? We'll move over to the Indian Hill. Brian?
Yep, King Street. Thanks again. Last meeting we approved a significant amount of change orders that have been backlogged, and it opened up quite a bit of work for the contractor. They are moving quickly now. They are installing a lot of the in-wall low voltage that needed to be rewired. The IT director found that most of the wiring in there is Cat 5. She was highly suggesting Cat 6, which is now being installed. She's also made her purchase on all of the networking equipment that's going into the rack at King Street. That will serve the Parks and Rec department. We've been in touch with Verizon, who owns the fiber that serves the school department, and they will be relocating up to the second floor so that they will have their own network up on the second floor. Flooring has not been begun, but we accepted a change order for the new bathroom down in the basement. That work is ongoing. They needed to chip some of the current slab out in order to install the ejector pumps in order to accommodate the emulsifying pump that's going in for that toilet. They've done some exterior improvements before the real cold came. We determined there was some back pitching that was happening, creating water getting into some of the basement areas. They've regraded that and created some dry wells in order to mitigate the water that was getting in. The gutter system is also helping with that as well. So we will see in the next coming weeks, we will see walls starting to go back up. We will see finishes starting to begin. And we are working with the town currently as our budget is extremely tight in this one. So any changes or requests that are coming in, we have to vet on a change by change basis and work with the town, the finance director as well, about what can be accommodated within this appropriation. I would say the change orders that we approved last meeting is still being reviewed by both us and with the contractor as to what type of an extension to substantial completion that they were going to have. They currently were scheduled to be finished in that March-April timeframe. I see that with us not having walls up yet, and rightfully so, because we made some changes to some of the in-walls, that there will be a time extension granted on this just due to the unforeseen conditions and some of the requests that have been received. We will bring that to the committee as well, probably just as a cover sheet, as a the language as a no cost change, but a time extension to the contract.
So what's the mechanism for that time extension? Is it a TIA type of thing?
Yeah, what we would send is very similar to the sheets that we do for a monetary change, but this would just be the cover sheet that is a zero cost change, and then the verbiage underneath it would talk about the extension to the substantial completion date. So we would reference the contract, the dates that they had under contract, and what this is, what this document is extending it to, and then identifying that specific date.
And that would be substantiated by the revised schedule.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
We just received, they were a little delinquent in getting their requisition in for December. We received it just at the end of last week. And my response to that is we are reviewing it, but we also need a new critical path and overall schedule for us to review so that we can confirm and agree with it before we issue this zero cost change for extension.
And what's the anticipated completion date now?
I don't have it, but I would anticipate probably late May at this point is where we're looking at. We are being sensitive to the school calendar as well. We know that it's very busy for the school department during certain parts of the year, as well as Parks and Rec. So when we're working with moving companies for both departments, we're going to make sure that we work within their calendars about getting into their new building, because we know that's going to be a little chaotic for them.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's move over to the police station. I guess is a very short conversation.
Yeah, very short. I've got confirmation from both vendors, both the architect, the envelope consultant, as well as the contractor, that they are fine with waiting until we have nicer weather in order to get the results or the testing that they are looking to do. So it's still on the radar. I have both of them kind of on I've got the hot phone ready for a call as soon as the weather improves, and we'll get them out there as soon as they can.
Okay, good. Member input. Bob,
I'm all set.
Mike,
I'm all set, thanks.
Stacy,
I'm good. Thank you.
Bartlett.
I'm all set, thanks.
I'm all set. The next meeting is
22nd.
January 22nd. Is there a motion to approve, adjourn?
So move.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Bob,
Bob Rumley, yes.
Mike,
Mike Scuduto, yes.
Stacy,
Stacy Scott, yes.
Bartlett,
Bartlett Harvey, yes.
and Steve Moore, yes. Thanks for everyone's participation, and have a great week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye
And
bye.
hope it warms up
Yeah. Well, here too.
all over.
Yeah, it's in the teens up here. I mean, just look at Kirby. He's all bundled up. He's got like 6 layers on.
Well, at the meeting today, I had a hard time identifying him. I couldn't see he was
Everybody
wrapped so
keeps
tight.
saying that. I put my hat on, like, I can't recognize you.
You were wrapped so tight there.
Yeah, literally and figuratively.
The wind
I
chill's
didn't want to
almost
go there.
zero.
All
All
right.
right,
You guys
gentlemen.
have a good night.
Take care.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.